The delegation of local, state and federal MPs met with Federal Transport Minister Senator Collins in Canberra late this afternoon. The main topic of discussion, the traffic problems created on roads linking the Sydney to Newcastle freeway with the New England and Pacific highways. Current measures of widening lanes and installing traffic lights at the intersection of John Renshaw Drive and the New England Highway at Beresfield are seen by Member for Waratah John Price as temporary and inadequate. He also described the noise problems due to increased traffic volume as intolerable. To this, Senator Collins promised funding of up to $500,000 for noise reduction work. This could include the installation of acoustic barriers along the highway perimeter at Beresfield and Taro. Plans for the promised flyover at the junction of John Renshaw Drive and the New England Highway were also discussed. However, Senator Collins would not give a definite commitment to federal government funding. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. It was a night of many firsts, these 11 young ladies making their debut at the inaugural Moonlight Debutante Ball at Cardiff near Newcastle. The event was organised by the New Lake Peer Support Group, which provides out-of-home respite for people with disabilities. With last-minute preparations taken care of, excitement abounded, and as the big moment arrived, you could almost feel the anticipation. For some, stage fright was certainly not an issue, and determination to participate, overcoming what may seem to some as the insurmountable. With greetings complete, it was time to dance and time to concentrate.
Like many communities throughout the Hunter, the people of Denman appreciate the efforts of the rescue helicopter to quickly airlift the sick and injured to hospital. Instead of just saying thank you, hundreds of people from this tiny town today used horsepower of a different sort to raise money for the chopper. The parade started at the showground early this morning and wound its way through the main street of town, entertaining onlookers. Riders had lunch in the vineyards and headed back to Denman for a celebration this evening. Organisers say the chopper is a much-needed service. This is the 5th year of the event, and so far they've earned a considerable amount of money for the chopper. In total, past parades have raised almost $50,000. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The home side led the way into the first quarter, but the Falcons were still pretty evenly matched and only trailed a few points by the half. South East Melbourne Magic had the top of the NBL ladder in their grasp and weren't going to be shaken by the visitors, who were lulled into a third quarter slump. The Magic took the opportunity to crowd on the points, widening a gap that the Falcons weren't going to pull back as the game and fatigue wore on. The match had its share of controversy. Newcastle's Grant Kruger escorted off after a desperate technical foul under the basket. Final score, Melbourne 114 to Newcastle's 92, and the Magic to the top of the ladder in front of the Perth Wildcats. Newcastle home next weekend, ranked number 7 for the playoffs. It was a bruising bout at Charlestown's Lyle Peacock Oval for the Under-18s Division 1 Grand Final. Lakes had already stamped their seal on the Under-16s First Division with a convincing win of 28 over Maitland 4. Lakes led the match with halfback Brett Tamorley and centre Sean Harrison in for tries, but it was only a late lockout that kept West from a catch-up in the dying moments of the game. Blackmore and Skinner for Lakes took the legs out from under Cliff Anderson, headed for certain Rosella points. At the end of the day, it was 14-6 to Lakes for their second grand final win in 2 years. The club's overall domination of the season, especially in the under-18s and 16s, augurs well for next year's comp. Most expected the Singleton Bulls to be on a rampage, but Wanderers were out to shut the gate from moments into the first half at Townsend Oval. David Earp was in for the first of 2 tries which enraged the Bulls and led them on a deep push into Wanderers territory. But the Blues broke out and Earp again scored in the corner. The final scoreboard showed Wanderers 20, Singleton 10, and will lead to a Singleton against Newcastle Uni playoff. The winner of that match meeting Wanderers at Newcastle No. 2 Oval for the grand final.
The miners were ordered back to work on Thursday by the Coal Industry Tribunal. For 3 days, the union defied that order, but at midnight last night, the members went back to work, ending their 5-day stoppage a day early. The union says it has achieved what it set out to do, bringing attention to what they say is excessive price cutting by coal companies. But the Coal Association has labelled the strike a political stunt by people out of touch with the real world.
It's been a completely, utterly futile political strike. All it has succeeded in doing is benefiting our competitors and drawing world attention back to the fact that we're perhaps not as reliable as we'd been claiming.
The union hasn't ruled out further industrial action and has issued a warning to Meredith Helicar and the New South Wales Coal Association.
We will not be intimidated, and I'm very disappointed from a personal point of view that Ms Helicar has taken the action that she has taken. If it continues, and the amount of phone calls that we're getting back from our rank and file today, it's certainly not a good arena for future industrial relationships.
The matter was back before the Coal Industry Tribunal this morning. Some coal companies have threatened to take the union to court seeking damages over lost production. But Ms Helicar would not be drawn on that, and the union had this to say.
Obviously those sort of things are a concern, but as I said there earlier, we will not be intimidated by those sort of allegations and innuendo from the companies. If they wish to take action, well obviously our rank and file will determine what our position will be around that.
Meanwhile, coal is beginning to filter down through the valley to the Port of Newcastle. The Port Waratah coal loader will be back operating tonight, the Kooragang loader by the middle of the week. There are 18 ships waiting off the coast to get into the Port of Newcastle. By Wednesday, when both loaders are operating, the queue will start to diminish. But Port Waratah Coal Service says it will be October before the backlog is finally overcome and things return to normal.
Local protests by cleaners have been staged since plans to privatise the government cleaning service were announced in July. Today, they began a statewide 48-hour strike. This action intensifies tomorrow when 2,000 cleaners from around New South Wales will protest in front of Parliament House in Sydney. The government claims privatisation will save it $37 million. The cleaners say it'll cost them their jobs.
They've just got to realise just how serious this problem is.
There are 2,500 government cleaners in northern New South Wales, and around 10% of them will be in Sydney to protest. A bus carrying 40 cleaners from the New England area will leave Armidale at midnight tonight and head straight for Sydney. 7 hours later, 4 other buses will arrive here at Newcastle's International Sports Centre, ready to carry a further 200 cleaners from Newcastle and the Central Coast.
These people are paying for their own seat down. And, you know, going out for 48 hours is a big loss of income.
If tomorrow's protest falls on deaf ears, Eve Hayden says there may be further industrial action. Although most schools, courthouses and government offices in the area were left unclean today, a small number of cleaners did turn up for work. Principals have been asked to monitor cleanliness in their schools, reporting to the department any situation that becomes intolerable.
We're not really expecting that there will be a great problem in the 2 days.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The privatisation of state-owned resources has unions seething. Yesterday's announcement that the Hunters coal freight rail line is on the market has led to accusations that the Fay government is getting rid of plant machinery ready for a sale. Union organiser Kevin Fordham says the government is hiring equipment rather than buying. The union also says moves to make work practices more efficient are being put down the priority list.
We don't seem to be getting any great push from the hierarchy to move very quickly into the structural efficiency.
The union fears if productivity drops, the government could justify selling the coal freight line to private enterprise. The government has denied the claims, saying it has invested millions in the line, including funding for 350 new high-capacity coal wagons. According to Transport Minister Baird, any work restructuring will be carried out through enterprise agreements. A commitment has been given that none of the 500 workers would be sacked if the line is sold off.
It's 2 weeks since James Mullen Developments announced it was taking over the Gordon Pacific land at Caves Beach. The company wants to establish around 4,000 housing lots on the land as part of the development, and this weekend the first 28 blocks go up for sale. The Oceanside blocks will start at $89,000, and while they may be a good buy, the company has yet to gain development approval for the subdivision. Developer Greg Moylan says his company is testing the market, and so far it's received a lot of interest, particularly from Sydney and the Central Coast. In readiness for Saturday, a track off Caves Beach Road has been sealed and a sales shed and signs are being prepared. However, all the activity on a development that is still very much in the planning stage has angered some residents.
This is a bit soon. We feel that the council hasn't had its input into this particular zoning, particularly access from Caves Beach Road. We feel that, it's a bit risky, taking deposits on land that hasn't got council approval.
Lake Macquarie Council had resolved to meet with the company and residents to try to sort out the issue. Councillor Ken Winning says he's disappointed Mr Moylan couldn't wait for that before starting to sell.
We do intend to sit down with this committee we're forming with them. It does surprise me that this has happened with this sort of timing.
A public meeting is being held tonight at the Nords Wharf Community Hall. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
In the most serious accident, the driver of the station wagon was trapped by his legs when it slammed into an oncoming truck in Carnley Avenue, New Lambton. Police rescue and ambulance paramedics worked for 3/4 of an hour to free him. Because of his injuries and the extent of damage to the station wagon, the driver had to be extricated through the rear of the vehicle. Ambulance officers transferred the 21-year-old man to John Hunter Hospital in a serious condition, suffering leg, arm and head injuries. The wet weather caused a spate of accidents. No one was injured when this car slammed into a safety fence on the Pacific Highway at Nords Wharf and came to rest on the opposite side of the road. While an Adamstown bike shop owner received a rude shock when one of the vehicles involved in this accident ended up on his doorstep. Several cycles displayed on the footpath also became casualties.
The success of the Falcons this year has so far guaranteed crowds of at least 3,000 again. However, they hope their supporters will come out of the woodwork over the next few weeks to give them a winning edge.
Any time your crowd gets behind you, it tends to be off-putting to the opposition. They're away from home and a little bit of a hostile crowd, and it can put them out of their offence a little bit. So, we are looking for a big crowd to get behind us. And
Centre Paul Kuiper will be out again this week due to a groin injury, and for a moment it looked as if replacement Simon O'Donnell could be off the court as well after dislocating his finger at training. However, this afternoon he was given the all-clear to play.
I had a little bit of a clash with Grant Kruger, and people who usually clash with Grant come off second best, so I came off second best and dislocated my finger.
The Falcons have had a pretty rough trot with referees recently, but there is a chance they may avoid some of the hardliners if they make the playoffs.
Gary Fox has done a great job all year of rostering the referees, and he has talked to coaches and talked to teams and gotten a lot of feedback from the coaches, and he continues to do that, so we are able to voice our opinions.
Western Suburbs burst onto the field determined to give their supporters something to cheer about at the end of the day. Minutes into the game and Warners Bay wanted to even up a few scores from earlier in the year. The intimidation paid off, the Bulldogs grabbing the first goal from a Russell Macy snapshot. Devils veteran Clinton Maxwell didn't wait long to remind them that it wouldn't be all one-way traffic, but that's just what it became in the last quarter. Warners Bay 1993 premiers by a very good margin. Just a few hundred metres away and Brewers in the blue were getting a lesson in youthful enthusiasm from Novos. Young West side throwing themselves at everything and forcing Brewers into uncharacteristic mistakes. By the third quarter the pressure was showing, but at the break a few choice words from coach Lucy Wilcox put them back on track. Novo's Bruce Linky told his players to concentrate on grabbing turnovers. So when the final quarter started, every missed shot became a fierce battle for possession. The two teams went goal for goal. However, the umpire's calls went Brewers' way and they managed to finish with a 3-point buffer. However, nobody left the court disgraced. Neither side gave any ground in the first half. The ball carrier wrapped up very quickly. Singleton's Scott Dalibozek made the first clean break after a beautiful cutout pass and stormed over for a try. Uni's Mark James engineered some brilliant moves in the lineouts that earned his team some easy metres. After the break, the minor premiers looked as if they were going to dominate, cutting Uni up out wide. The lineouts became fierce battles and had the crowd on their feet for most of the half. All the scrum drills throughout the week paid off for Uni, enabling them to gain some good field position and eventually the winning points. Uni will now go on to meet Wanderers next week.
Cardiff neighbourhood. The 68-year-old victim had been sitting on a porch, her 67-year-old companion tending a backyard aviary when the doorbell rang. Police say Olga Gantaruk knew her attacker. As she opened the door, she was stabbed once in the chest with a knife, its blade piercing her heart.
There's no forced entry. The offender, as I say, is known to the victim, and for whatever reason he's attended the premises here this morning, and the victim has simply answered a ring at the doorbell.
I saw the lady coming out. She had blood all over her.
The woman was rushed to the John Hunter Hospital for immediate surgery and is now in a serious but stable condition. Her companion told police he'd seen a man running from the house and speed away in a white Commodore. A short time later, the car was reported to have crashed at Blackbutt Reserve. A passerby had seen the driver, a man aged in his 60s, with blood running down his arm, make off into the bush. Police quickly set up a search of the area using trail bikes and officers on foot. Picnickers were warned to stay alert and not to approach the man if they saw him. A sweep by the police helicopter this afternoon failed to spot the man, described as being of medium build and balding, wearing a grey sports coat, white shirt and green trousers. Police wish to contact Alexander Wybex to assist in their investigations. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. Beaumont Street was jam-packed for the culmination of a multicultural carnival. For many it was a chance to blend with the rich cosmopolitan community, to sample ethnic food, dance, crafts and music. The finale of Fiesta was a procession of nations, street performers and theatre groups. As much as Fiesta is a promotion of Hamilton as a shopping place by the Chamber of Commerce, it's also a chance for ethnic communities to invite better understanding of their ways of life. Groups from the Pacific, Asia, Spain and Eastern Europe set up stalls, wore national costumes and performed traditional arts through the day before linking up for the parade. This is a horse trainer's world. It's 5:30 a.m, it's cold and damp, and local trainer Noel Mayfield-Smith is in his element.
I just like the job, I like horses. I suppose having a bit of success makes it a bit easier as well.
Noel is one of the Mayfield-Smith horse training trio. His brother Lawrence is based at Doomben in Brisbane. His other brother Brian trains in Sydney. It was with Brian Noel served his apprenticeship, spending 12 years as Brian's stable foreman. 18 months ago, Noel got his trainer's licence. It was then the 36-year-old father of two set up in Newcastle with just one horse. Now he has 26 horses, and all appear to respond to his quiet, caring manner. Take 3-year-old Angst. The filly is on track to win a $200,000 bonus if it wins all 4 Princess Series races. It's halfway there, following this win at Randwick 11 days ago. And then there's Mistador. He's had 3 wins from 9 starts, one of those in the Gosford Classic last month. And the winning tally to date?
I don't keep count on the winners. Yesterday's winner's gone. I'm more worried about tomorrow's, so I couldn't tell you.
But surely you wouldn't be able to count all the winners on one hand?
No, there's been a few more than that.
In fact, since December, Noel has had 21 winners. So what's his formula?
Well, I think basically I've got the horses that have got the ability. Also, I've been very patient when, I felt sometimes that I should push them along a bit further, but as I said, I've been patient and I think it's paying off now.
Maybe one ingredient to his success is family involvement. Noel trains while wife Kim balances the books.
That helps him because he hasn't got to worry about them because he's got me to do that. I worry about that and he worries about the horses, so that's sort of a load off his mind.
Despite the workload, Noel always seems to rise to the occasion. Take today. After the early morning training session, it was a quick trip home to check on his 5 horses running in the Newcastle Spring Cup Carnival. First up was Taldra, an English 2-year-old Noel began nurturing as a yearling. Unfortunately, today wasn't to be Taldra's.
You just don't win every time.
There's always another day?
Yeah, there is. Might be a better win.
Doris Kelly is no stranger to being first. She was the first woman to set up a real estate business in Tamworth and is now Narrabri's first female mayor. And today she moved into the mayor's office full of enthusiasm for the job.
It was a surprise. I wasn't confident, but I'm delighted.
Former Mayor Bevan O'Regan was eliminated in the first round of voting. However, Mrs Kelly said the ex-leader of Narrabri still had a role to play in the community.
I have the greatest respect for Bevan. He's a very genuine person, a very honourable person, and certainly he's given 150% to everything he's done for Narrabri Shire Council.
Councillor Ross Panton couldn't win a trick at the election. Not only did he narrowly lose to Doris Kelly 6-5 in the main election, but lost by the same amount to Norm Sweetman for the Deputy Mayor's position.
The walking wounded wait for physiotherapy at Royal Newcastle Hospital. 66-year-old Albie Fullbeck is one of the lucky few who managed to get an appointment for treatment today. His need was great, having recently had a knee replacement operation.
It was a very sore operation. I'm improving now though.
The demand for physiotherapy is enormous. At Royal Newcastle Hospital alone, there's a waiting list of 200 people. Another 200 are waiting for physio at the Mater and Belmont hospitals. To cope with the problem, the Royal has introduced the wartime system of treating those most in need first, with the rest having to wait.
We've implemented at the Royal Newcastle Hospital a triage system to try and give timely access for people with acute conditions. Unfortunately, with that heavy, people with more chronic conditions have to wait longer for service.
Some people have to wait several months for treatment.
We have limited resources and ability to see people quickly.
The queue is about to get even longer, with 2 of the 6 physios at the Royal leaving at the end of this week. The Chief of the Region's Health Service is aware of the waiting list, but he says only 1 extra physio will be employed this year.
Well, we need to add additional physiotherapy staff, but I also want to give priority to speech pathology, and I think in terms of waiting times there that they're even longer.
As of next Monday, the former Wallsend Hospital will be home for Marjorie Trees. She's just one of 42 residents from Western Suburbs Hospital who'll be moving in. Open Day gave everyone a chance to look over the new digs.
Absolutely beautiful, really beautiful. The rooms are so lovely.
Another 32 residents from Dudley Men's Home will move in on Wednesday. No extra beds will be created by opening Wallsend District Nursing Home, but Dr Smythe says quality of life for some will be improved.
Many of the residents, say particularly the Dudley Nursing Home, have been in open dormitories accommodating 13 people in a room, and they'll now be moving to more personal accommodation.
As for the picket line that fought for so long to keep the General Hospital open,
as we've said time and time again, it wasn't what we wanted, but I think if we had sat here forever, we wouldn't get any better.
The picketers will have an official role as volunteer guardians of the nursing home.
Mother Nature wasn't kind for the return of young Endeavour to Newcastle, with the westerly blow dashing plans for an arrival under sail. Despite the weather, Novocastrians turned out for one of their biggest maritime welcomes this year. Britain's bicentenary gift to Australia, the 44-metre sailing vessel is operated by the Navy, the youthful crew completing a voyage from Brisbane.
We take young people, 16 to 23-year-olds, away for 10-day voyages at sea, where we do a sail training experience. We take people and teach them a bit about sailing, but also about themselves.
Commanding the tall ship is one of the Navy's most interesting jobs for Cohiba's Scott Henderson.
Absolutely, yeah, especially being captain of the ship and especially bringing it into Newcastle, my home port. It's good to get back here on the ship, but it's really wonderful working with these young people and just seeing how motivated they can be.
Several Newcastle youngsters were amongst the crew, including Andrew Eastwood of Alabama, who says he gained a lot from the voyage.
I've got better endurance now. Some of the things they've had us doing really test your endurance level and all that sort of thing. And I think I am better after this little 10-day jaunt on the seas.
Completion of duties for the trainees, a trip up the foremast to trim the sails. A final challenge which put them to the test as they battled the strong winds. First to get a close look at the ship were family and friends of the trainees. The public can inspect the young Endeavour at Lee Wharf on Saturday and Sunday afternoon.
The first earthquake building code was released in Australia in 1979. In December 1989, scientists and engineers began working on an updated version. 2 weeks later, an earthquake hit Newcastle. Buildings collapsed and 13 people died. It then became imperative to get the new code out as soon as possible. 4 years later, that code has been published, and the committee responsible is travelling the country explaining it to builders, architects and engineers.
It won't prevent damage, but it will prevent collapse. So the idea is to stop the casualties. We'd like to think that nobody would have been killed if those design codes had been applied to Newcastle.
And for the first time, houses have been included in the code, a result of the 1989 earthquake.
So I think what happened in Newcastle was that a lot of the smaller buildings, 1 to 3 storey buildings, were very badly damaged. Now under the old code and under many of the overseas codes, those buildings are specifically excluded from the code.
By using the new code, builders can construct houses that shouldn't collapse. Mr McHugh says that up until 1989, Australia had been very lucky, with major earthquakes away from built-up areas. But the Newcastle experience has shown it can happen, and it probably will again.
But as you have seen from the Newcastle earthquake, it's not impossible that a damaging earthquake will occur, and I'm sure they will occur in the future.
Ross River fever virus is spread by mosquitoes. It's not fatal, but it is unpleasant.
The symptoms vary quite a bit, but normally it's aches and pains, tiredness, and this can last for quite a number of weeks. In some cases it can linger on even longer.
The Health Department monitors the prevalence of the virus. Last year, traps were set at Newcastle's Shortland Wetland Centre. Although the number of mosquitoes was high, none carried the virus. John James says Ross River fever is usually found in remote coastal areas.
We get a lot of notifications north of Newcastle, around the Port Stephens area and also the Great Lakes area.
As the mosquito season approaches, people visiting high-risk areas are being urged to take precautions.
If you are going to go out at dawn or at dusk, make sure that you wear protective clothing like long-sleeve shirt and trousers and wear a mosquito repellent.